In sports, if you want to be the best, there are no off days.
Be the best.
Well, you're going to have to put some more work in. Until then, no more off days. Welcome on into the NODPOD. He is Chris Cato, the one chiming in right out of the gates. We got BK in the booth. I am Scott Smith, and we have another action-packed show for you.
Let's go.
I think a lot of people come into this week, I mean, it's just like not sure what to expect, and I think a lot of people were kind of caught off guard by what went down on Tuesday night. Georgia, number
okay, I was wondering where you were
3,
going.
where are they in the rankings? Yeah, no, the college football playoff rankings, of course, out this week. And so I know that this has kind of been the moment, right? This for you. This is all the other AP college ranking. None of that stuff. None of the coaching rankings. None of that stuff means anything. Right?
Yeah, we can throw away those AP polls now. Yeah, it's glorious to see, and this is big for you too. You were a proponent of the 12-team playoff before I was on board. In fact, I think you want a field of 64. But it's just great to see these first rankings come out and see that bracket laid out there. And now these aren't the matchups we'll have after December 8th, but just to see the potential, and you see, you know, the fact that 4 teams will be hosting on-campus games and how exciting that looks. You get fired up for it.
Could it not be the matchups, though? I think
it
there's
could
a
be.
pathway that all those teams could still be in the mix. I don't know that anybody's going to really has the ability to knock one of the other teams out, but we can get into that a little bit. I think we ought to bring in Brian King. Let's say hello and welcome to Mr. BK. You saw the rankings come out on Tuesday night. Is there anything that kind of stood out to you?
Not much. I mean, it does look different, and it is kind of growing on me a little bit.
Oh, I like it. And Boise State is your 12 seed right now, so your 5 is Ohio State, as they have it in the bracket. Even though they're ranked number 2 according to the playoff rankings. But Boise State's been a feisty bunch. You know, they took Oregon down to like a final possession.
That's their only loss.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's intriguing. What I think will change potentially is I do think, you know, even though we kind of joked about it, the configuration of having 8 teams from 2 conferences, I think that's subject to change. 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten. You know, Big Ten could potentially get all 4 of those teams in, I suppose, if Indiana can hold on. Penn State, I don't know that they have much down the stretch. Oregon doesn't really have much down the stretch. And then, you know, Ohio State, you know, if they run into something with Indiana, could that be something that a two-loss Ohio State team, if your 2 losses are Indiana? I mean,
I don't think – see, that was my big takeaway, BK, is the way – and I heard people say, oh, this initial ranking really won't matter. It's just what happens after, you know, the conference championship games. But I think it does matter, and I think it sets up – I think everyone should be jealous of the Big Ten to have 4 in the top 8, and then as Scott was kind of alluding to there, the way it kind of plays out down the stretch. Let's say Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State went out. That would include Ohio State beating Indiana. So Indiana's at home with 1 loss on conference championship Saturday. Penn State has 1 loss, but it's to Ohio State. Now, whatever happens between Oregon and Oregon State, either way, if Ohio State loses, they have only 2 losses, both to the same team. Yeah. If Oregon loses, they have only 1 loss. So you really you're kind of envious of Indiana and Penn State sitting at home with 1 loss. I think the Big Ten has the best shot of getting 4 in.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the SEC, guys, it's just rock'em sock'em robots every weekend. I mean, that's you're gonna have, and I do think, and you know, getting to later on in the show, we're gonna get into all of this in more detail. But you know, I just wonder how much of this initial rankings kind of gives you an idea of where the value is that the committee is placing on certain teams in certain conferences, specifically SEC, because you know. What you don't want in your first dry run of the 12-team playoff is to have a bunch of SEC teams that, you know, maybe 4 of them that could all win potentially the national championship, and, you know, not getting them in because now we have teams that are, you know, group of 5 teams, or you have an independent team like Notre Dame, or, you know, an independent team, supposedly independent, like even like a Washington State that's sitting there.
Got some wild cards out there.
Yeah, I mean, so anything could kind of factor into this, but let me not get too far ahead of myself. What do we have on today's program, BK?
We're going to keep talking a little bit of college football with Evan Abrams. He's with the Action Network. Bring him in, talk a little bit about what this college football playoff shapes up for him and what his take on it. Scott knows football. He's got a good knowledge of that.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
We'll even get him to be our picker, I think, if we can get him to stick around.
All right. Maybe we'll get a lock of the
guest
weekend out of him, you know.
We need to improve the guest pickers a little bit. Their record has been kind of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been subpar all year.
Okay.
You know.
Do you guys want to congratulate
Gino
me for
Torretta coming from right behind you with a chair. Oh!
Watch out.
Okay.
And then at the end of the show, randomizer. I've tweaked it a little bit. It's going to be more random.
He's tweaked it.
It's even more random than you thought
Yeah,
it could be.
yeah. I didn't like the themes too much. This thing was starting to spit out. So let's get it more random. That's where it's real fun.
Okay.
Yeah. If you add the high octane fuel to that randomizer.
I put a Diet Mountain Dew in it. So
that's exactly what it means.
That's what it is.
It'll be coming at us like a spider monkey.
Good stuff. All right, BK, we catch up momentarily. If you're listening and you want to watch, go to fox13news.com/NODPOD. If you're watching and you want to listen, subscribe. You can take out your phone, zap the QR code on the screen, and you can find all of our shows. We invite you to subscribe and to like and to share. Give us a 5-star. Give us a 6-star if it's even possible. fox13news.com/NODPOD. All right, Chris, let's first jump into the NFL. Of course, the trade deadline went and passed this last week. And, you know, some teams made some moves prior to the deadline. Some waited till deadline day to get the deals done. But I want to kind of grade some of these out, see which teams you think actually made their squads better, who gave up maybe a little too much, deals you don't think are going to pay off. I think I'll start first, give you some time to study some of your notes. I think first and foremost, because the Bucs just saw them, how about the Chiefs?
Yeah.
You go out and add DeAndre Hopkins, and he showed up big, couple of touchdown catches. Josh Uche, outside linebacker. I think Hopkins is a fit, and he's a fit because of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and they're going to make it work no matter what. But I think that his familiarity with who's the old coach from the Cardinals, Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah. Cliff Kingsbury. That's what I call him, right?
Like you. Yeah. And then Uche, I think he's been pretty productive in terms of being able to generate some pass rush. He had 11.5 sacks a couple years back. So I gave the Chiefs an A.
Yes, you took the easy one there,
Okay.
but obvious one, right? Yeah, Uche was popping the other night against the Bucs. This is kind of an obvious one too. I'll go Jets, and I'll give them an A just for
Really?
getting Devontae Adams and getting rid of Mike Williams and getting a little bit in return for Mike Williams. Let's see, they pick up a 2025 fifth rounder. But I think we saw in that Houston Jets game the other night, that was Adams' third game, I believe, with the team.
That sounds right.
And I think we see that this is what they had envisioned when they picked him up there. It frees up Garrett Wilson more. So I would give their GM, Aaron Rodgers, an A.
Yeah, no doubt. That was definitely an Aaron Rodgers deal. I gave that one like a B-.
Okay.
I just to me, it's like you're giving up a third. There's still some value there. You're going to be paying Devontae Adams a lot, and I just don't know how relevant the Jets are going to actually be this year. Let's go Commanders. They added a late deadline deal. Marshawn Lattimore, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. This team's really exciting. I hate to pat myself on the back. I seem to do it every week. But, again, the Commanders were one of those teams that I had. Did I have them as a playoff team? I had them as a sneaky good team. I know that much.
Yeah.
And they've been more sneaky than I could have anticipated. But I like Lattimore's addition to that defense, especially since you're going to get him long-term. I think he still has years left on the contract. They already have a ton of draft picks, even though they gave up, I think, 3 picks, got one in return, plus Lattimore. Adam Peters doing a great job as GM there, and I think this move is going to pay off big. I give them an A.
Can I go opposite side of that trade there and give the Saints a B+ because it's a lost season. Dennis Allen is gone. You got to get rid of they've got some cap space issues to overcome.
Yeah.
This gets rid of some dead money, trading Marshawn Lattimore to Washington for a 3rd, 4th, and 6th rounder in next year's draft. This is kind of the formula you want, right? You want to get we don't know who the coach is going to be, but you want to get some young guys in under rookie contracts that can build toward the future. So I think it was a good move by the Saints. Let's give them a B.
Okay. Let me go bad grade. I got a bad grade here.
Okay, good.
The Cowboys. Anything the Cowboys are doing right now is just it's like acid. We just I don't get it. The Jonathan Mingo edition, you give up a 4th rounder for that. I know he's young, but the guy he's never popped triple digits. He's never even found the end zone. It seems like a Cowboys move that's just not relevant, just like much of their offseason had been.
I didn't understand.
So I gave them
either.
a D. I gave them a D.
They also traded a draft pick with him for it too, didn't they? Anyway,
Well, I don't know.
Not a good deal.
Yeah.
I had one more good grade I wanted to give the Lions, your Detroit Lions. We talked a couple of weeks ago about solidifying that pass rush with Aiden Hutchinson out, and I think you mentioned this as a move that they should probably make in getting Zadarius Smith. When you've got a pass rush presence like that, it only helps your secondary too. So for Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, this is a win. I think it'll turn out to be an A- or so for the Lions. And then on the negative side, I would just go. I was surprised that the Houston Texans didn't do something to protect C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
I think that's the weakest part of their team now. We saw it against the Jets and in many other games. They've got offensive line issues, and I think they're kind of thinking if we can get, Nico Collins, a couple of receivers back, that'll fix some of our offensive woes, but it's really protection, and that's why we've seen a regression in Stroud's stats. So I was really surprised they didn't go and try to land some of the offensive linemen that were out there and available.
I think another team did pretty well. The Ravens. These are it's not the splashiest additions. I give them a B for adding Deontay Johnson. They also get a 6th rounder. They give up a 5th. So you basically get Deontay Johnson for nothing. And then you get Tre'Davious White, who, look, he's not Tre'Davious White of old. I get it. But you're adding depth here at a receiving position. You're adding depth here to your defensive backfield for a team they're already good. I mean, so I think you're just making your team that much better, and you don't really give up a whole lot to do it. That's a win. And then I'm going to give an incomplete on assignment to the Buccaneers because I think you really had an opportunity to go out, not necessarily to be in contention for any one of these guys, but to make no moves. You're thin at a handful of positions, receiver, at cornerback. I mean, yes, this team has still been able to, give some great effort in spite of the loss of their top 2, and last week it was top 3 receivers. Yeah. But, I mean, this league, you need depth. You need to find it somewhere, and I don't know. I just thought that a move was probably warranted here within the last week or two for this team. So how about an NFL MVP? If you had to give kind of a midseason MVP, who gets it for you?
For me, it's Jared Goff.
Really?
And you've seen this. The last 6 weeks, he has the highest QBR ever recorded in NFL history over a span of 6 weeks. The guy just
deadly efficient.
Does not put the ball on the ground or in harm's way. And this offense, and I know you could say, wow, but look at the supporting cast around him. Like, put a lot of quarterbacks in that offense, but I don't know. It's his mastery of the offense. It's his understanding of where his weapons are going to be, and seeing what the defense is giving him. I would have him as my midseason MVP candidate.
Yeah, he's got like a 75% completion percentage, so that's pretty accurate. I mean, to me, this is not really that difficult. It's Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's just popping in every offensive category. He's even better with taking care of the ball. He only has 2 interceptions all year to, let's see, how many touchdowns does he have? 20 touchdowns, which is 3rd in the NFL right now, and 2 picks. I mean, that's just he's ridiculous. I wanted to give it to Saquon Barkley for his reverse jump just for that alone. But, I mean, Lamar Jackson, I think Jaden Daniels could make a case if this Washington team continues to play some interesting ball. He's kind of a Goff-esque player in terms of just, not putting the ball in harm's way, and they're an exciting team to watch. That Hail Mary was fantastic. Derrick Henry's been putting in work. He's got a case to make as well, but if I had to give it right now, probably Lamar Jackson. Yeah. All right, coming up on the other side, ready to jump back into college football. We have a guest on the other side that's ready to dig through the numbers. You ready to put it to work?
I've got my little cheat pad out here.
I'm going to
take some notes.
Be ready to take them. NODPOD continues after this. The long-awaited return discussion of college football playoff rankings, of course, coming out earlier this week, and we saw that beautiful 12-team playoff grid kind of take shape, and all the long-held dreams that I've had of seeing this come to fruition seem like they're right around the corner at this point.
And to see some of the brands in it, too, it just kind of speaks to the chaos we've seen. This when you look up and you see Indiana ranked 8th and BYU 9th and Boise 12th, it really is everything we wanted when we wanted more inclusivity.
Yeah, well, we wanted something like a college basketball, bracket, and now we're getting a college basketball team in Indiana. So how about that? With that, let's bring in an Indiana grad, coincidentally enough. He is from the Action Network. Evan Abrams is our guest today. All right, so let's start there. I got to imagine Hoosier fans are kind of in disbelief at this point, one of the few undefeated teams in the country right now.
Yeah, literal disbelief. I mean, think about it like this, and this is probably the easiest way to make some sort of comparison. That they were 3-24 in the Big Ten the previous 3 years. Now 6-0 this year, just ridiculous all around. And then you think about it like this: their win total was 5.5 entering this year. So we are just doubling and way beyond expectations at this point. I think the hope right now is undefeated into the horseshoe, and then just throw it up in the air and hope in a prayer.
Who had that circled on their calendar before the season started, that Indiana and Ohio State would have playoff implications? That's amazing. Yeah, congrats to the Hoosiers, though. Coach Sig, just on fire. The big thing is, how do you keep another program from coming to him with a Brinks truck at the end of the season?
Yeah, I'm not sure that you do. Let's get into your impressions of what you saw when they unveiled that 12-team bracket, Evan. And, obviously we got the 4 Power 5 or Power 4 teams that have received that first round bye. But what are your initial reactions? Do you feel like there's any snubbing that kind of stood out to you?
Well, let's just talk about the bracket itself just for a quick second. It was beautiful. It was colorful. It was just amazing to see all together. I think looking at it from a holistic point of view, the thing that stands out to me, the top 17 teams in the selection committee's rankings were basically identical to the AP poll with only a few different changes. So at least initially, it was nice to be able to not see two completely different things on opposite sides and have to compare the two. So I guess off the bat, that's probably the way I would look at it. Now looking at a few of the teams. So we talked about an overvalued situation maybe and a snub situation. So for the overvalued, from just simply a rankings point of view, I would guess it's probably BYU for me. At 4th in the college football playoff, 9th in the country, but they're 100-1. I would say to win it all. So pretty properly. So from an overvalued point of view, that's probably it. And then you think about it like this, right? The Big 12 champion will be part of the 12-team playoff. If Boise State does win out and BYU doesn't finish 13-0 as the Big 12 champion, the Big 12 champ will not earn a first-round bye here. So I think there's certain circumstances, let's call it, that probably would label them potentially overvalued. Also, look at some of the spreads. They haven't been double-digit favorites in any game since their opener. So I think it's a bit of perception as well. And then I'll give you the quickly on the snubbed. I think there's probably 2 ways to look at this. The best power rated and talented teams to me is Ole Miss, and they're going to come up later as well. But yeah, they do have 2 losses, unlikely to get in without some help, but they're probably the talented way to look at it. And the other one is Penn State. I think where they are and where they could go based off of where they lie in the bracket, they're probably the other one that I think, yeah, they had the loss to Ohio State, but I think they're just as good.
I think Penn State's overvalued.
Yeah?
Yeah, they've beaten no one. They've beaten, and now they get to kind of sit at home and you hope they run the table. At Minnesota will be tough, but I think Penn State's in the best position.
Yeah, because
now we have them as like a 93% chance to sweep the remaining schedule, which is the only reason I would say, like, at this point, I would assume they get their job done. But you're right. Minnesota's been a thorn in a few people's sides this year, and the way they kind of play on balance on both sides of the ball could give them trouble. But to me, I would probably say the Ole Miss. Like, we had them power rated much better entering the year. 2 losses didn't kind of work out, but to me, they're pretty dangerous.
Yeah, and they'll have an opportunity, I think, to fight their way in. Obviously, this weekend they have a huge game. But, I think how these, to Chris's point, you have a Penn State team that, if you had to call it now, probably not getting into the Big Ten championship game, but they might find that sweet spot in that they have 1 loss and yet still very highly ranked, and so they don't have to play in a conference championship game. If you have, how punitive do you think these conference championships are going to be to Power 5 schools that end up losing in the championship game? Say like you got an undefeated BYU, and they go to the Big 12 championship game, they lose to an Iowa State or a Colorado. How punitive should that be for the loser of these championship games?
Well, I think we've seen it in just rankings throughout time, from the BCS to all these different methods we've seen, is the losses later or the wins later tend to just be more prevalent in the eyes of the system. So I do think let's call it games at the end of the year will have more circumstances in terms of who goes in, especially now that I know you're inviting more teams, but you're still having to make decisions, right? I mean, between that, let's call it 9 to 16 slot is going to be very up in the air, even though I did say that the AP's kind of matching what the playoff did, at least initially. There's chaos to come. And you also know that it's going to be very different, I think, week to week. And I think you might see some of those differences. So to say it one way or the other, I do think it'll show odds value, because I do believe teams they'll have the opportunity, maybe if you're 16, 17, 15 range, to get into the playoff with some of those losses, and the odds markets may not show that later.
This is wild, though, and I think we're in the most compelling November in my lifetime as a college football fan, because so much is possible and there's still a lot to be determined. But I am a little surprised, when you hear 12-team playoff. Now, as an SEC fan or a fan of an SEC team, I think, oh man, we lose just 2 games, we're in the playoff, they're not keeping us out. But now you look at this, and we just talked about possibly someone stealing a bid if they if BYU loses their conference championship game, but it's a narrow loss. Do you keep them out? Or same with the ACC, if Miami and SMU play and it's SMU wins and Miami loses their first game of the season, they're ranked 4th now. Are you keeping them out? So some of these bids are going to disappear. There's always the Notre Dame wild card, and then you look at the SEC, and in the conference there's 5 one-loss teams and 4 two-loss teams. Someone in the SEC is going to be, maybe a few teams could be sitting at home and not making the playoff with 2 losses. And you almost wonder how much, Evan, will brand matter to the committee when deciding who gets in, because they're also putting on a TV show here.
Yeah, I think the thing that kind of has aggravated me through history with these selections is that we definitely should be looking at head-to-head, no matter when it was in the season, a little bit more than we do, even if it is earlier in the year. That's just one, let's call it personal aspect, that I think kind of means more. Sometimes I've seen, one team beat another team, but have like a better resume or a better win or something, or a worse loss, and make it into playoffs and brackets and things like that. So that is one aspect I just hope we kind of stay kind of consistent with. The one thing I will say, you mentioned the let's call it non-P4, non-power 4 or 5, be able to get into the playoff. The interesting thing in terms of the odds, so obviously I think you have really 3 or 4 choices. It's Boise, Army, Tulane, UNLV, maybe Louisiana Lafayette, but I think Boise is really your only real option in terms of odds right now. So they're minus 250 to make the playoff, plus 190 not to. Looking at the rest of their schedule, at San Jose State, Oregon State, and probably the Mountain West title game, you have some hurdles there. But even below that, so Army's 10-1, Tulane is 7-1, and Tulane has already 2 losses. So I do feel like the random team-ish outside the Power 4 to be able to jump in this point, aside from Boise, I think it's still a little bit of a long shot, because I do see maybe even some more losses coming for those teams, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that we're talking about one group of 5. Can you imagine a scenario in which you had, like, let's say Washington State runs the table. They have 1 loss. That loss is to Boise State. Boise State ends up getting a group of 5 bid. And then Washington State takes the place of a 2 or maybe a 3-loss SEC team, and now you have 2 SEC teams that have made the 12. Like, if
I will say this, I will say this, in the future, I do think there's an opportunity where this is going to be a lot more fun than it is now, because right now you have 7-1 Boise, 8-0 Army, et cetera, with Tulane with 2 losses. You're going to have a point where there's going to be maybe 2 undefeated teams, or you're going to have like more teams that end up standing out. Like UNLV probably shouldn't have had one of the losses on their schedule earlier in the year. I think it was Syracuse. There's a few circumstances in the future, I think, that will create better drama and circumstances by just having less losses on the resume. Because I think we can throw out a few of these teams now, and it will be a little chalkier. But that's not to say I think future brackets, this is the right move, and it will be great.
Well, and I think that if you ever want to have an argument to even expand it further than 12, is to only have 2 SEC teams in it.
Oh, Greg,
that will
make that happen
move the ball
next season.
forward.
It'll be 24 next year if you do that.
Without a doubt. Yeah, and part of the SEC this year is that you don't have just a team that's running away like a Bama team from years past or a Georgia team from years past. There's everybody. The playing field is kind of leveled in that conference, and it's made for a lot more losses than if they had been going up against teams out of the Mountain West or the Big Ten.
You're facing all these crazy teams right now that you wouldn't been facing before. Like, before we're talking about, if South Carolina is good, but now you deal with Texas. It's just a different it's made it better, but it's creating more losses.
Yeah.
Very NFL-like. Well, what do the odds say right now about the 2 teams in the SEC most likely to meet in the championship game?
Looking at the odds, Georgia plus 150, and this is SEC Conference Championship game winner, but it's also telling you who's most likely to be there. So Georgia plus 150, Texas 2-1, Tennessee 7-1, LSU 11-1, Texas A&M 12-1.
Ooh,
and so Bama's even lower.
I don't like how that sounds for Bama.
I missed one of your teams in there, Chris. Chris, of course, is a dyed-in-the-wool Crimson.
Yeah, but see, that's value there.
Yeah.
That's worth it for Bama there.
Jump online.
Yeah, I agree.
Break. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to have you stick around. On the other side, we'll get into some of these college football matchups, and we'll have you put your money where your mouth is. How about that? All right. Stick around. NODPOD continues with our pick segment next. All right, we just touched on it last segment, and now we will jump into our pick segment. We welcome back in Evan Abrams from the Action Network, and here we go. We got a 3:30 kick. Georgia, number 2, paying a visit to Ole Miss, ranked number 16. This is an Ole Miss team that you were high on last segment. You talked about all the talent there. Will they be able to pull off the upset at home against those Dogs?
So let's just look at the line for a second. 2.5. It was 3. I took Ole Miss at 3. To be honest with you, I think it's just a much better situation for their offense. Now, the trend I will give you kind of goes the other side in the fact that Kirby Smart is 30-3 straight up as a road favorite. But again, our power ratings just love the Rebels in this one, and I need that 3 though, because it was 3.5 earlier in the week. But all the money, all the tickets right now on Georgia, so I like Ole Miss.
Yeah, this is one of the old analytics versus what does your gut and what does history say, and history tells me to trust Kirby in these big games more than Lane Kiffin. That's the knock on Lane, is he just doesn't win these big games. And Kirby I trust, just like we doubted them after they lost to Bama, then they're on the road playing at Texas. He's going to have these guys ready. I know. I almost said Brock Bowers. I know they wish they had Brock Bowers. I know Carson Beck has been a turnover machine lately.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get that straightened out this week. 2 very good defenses here. Ole Miss's defense might be better than Georgia's, but I know when Kirby gets his guys dialed in, I think it's going to be low scoring, but I think the Bulldogs are going to win and cover that spread.
Yeah, I mean, if you get Carson Beck from last year, earlier this year, maybe you get an effort like that. And for as well as I think Kirby can get his guys ready, I mean, Beck he's been problematic. I mean, you mentioned all the turnovers. I think it's 11 in the last 5 games, 8 of the last 3 games. He's looked very pedestrian. Now, I think that there's opportunities against Ole Miss secondary, but if you're trying to strike balance and take some pressure off your quarterback, Ole Miss has a really good run defense. So, I kind of think we got a little upset at home. A couple weeks ago, I sat here and said UGA was going to run the table, and I'm going to say I was wrong back then, and I think they suffer a loss in Oxford this weekend. All right, Big Ten action. Your team, we got the Indiana Hoosiers hosting, number 8 Indiana Hoosiers, we should say, hosting Michigan, and they are 2 touchdown favorites, -14, 3:30 kick, Evan.
Yeah, so 14 and actually kind of getting up to about 14.5 now. I have to kind of start with the history here. So they're a double-digit favorite up to 14.5, but Indiana hasn't been a favorite against Michigan in a football game in 43 total meetings. 1968 was the last time Indiana was favored over Michigan in a football game, and now it's a 14-point spread. I mean, in terms of the run that they're on, forgetting the fact that they're undefeated, they've also won and covered 8 in a row, which just seems absolutely ridiculous because Cignetti's 16-3 against the spread in his last 19 games. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Michigan is a good bet just because I've watched them all year and they've looked really bad. But I also am going to say this line is very inflated. I think the way I would play this game would be to look at Indiana team total over. I think there's going to be points, but I do think it's possible that Michigan tries to stay in this one for a little bit. I just don't think they're able to stop them on offense. So I think the angle here has got to be the team total there. The one reason I will say this, so as a double-digit favorite, Cignetti 8-6 against the number. All other spots 15-3. I just think I have no interest in going that large.
I just made a note there. Indiana team total over. Got it. We talked about this earlier. There is no way I'm going against Indiana not to cover. They are a cover machine. They are the free space on the bingo card of your parlay. And this Michigan team is not good. They're just, the offense is bad. Who is even their quarterback now? I know Sharon Moore has gone.
Warren.
It is Davis Warren. Okay.
Well, they kind of split. Him and Orgy get in there.
Yeah, it's a bad product. And so yeah, I'm going to take your Evan, Indiana Hoosiers to cover that 14 and a half. I'll take them to cover 15. Let's let that line keep going up.
Yeah, well, if I'm Indiana, I'm inviting all surviving members of the 1968 Indiana Hoosiers team out onto the field. We're going to have some type of moment. I think the line it's a little too big. I mean, Indiana has such a great offense that's balanced, run past 46 points a game. It's ridiculous. Their defense is really just as good, and Wolverines, they don't have the offensive weapons. I do think that maybe Michigan has like a late cover, and it's not quite as significant. But I feel like the whole
significant. Coach Sig.
Yeah, I feel like the whole game will feel like Indiana has it in the bag.
So what was your pick?
Yeah, I got Michigan to cover.
You got Michigan covering.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, out of the SEC, they're calling it the elimination game of the weekend. Number 11, Alabama, paying a visit to Baton Rouge. They are 3-point favorites on the road. A night kickoff in Death Valley, Evan.
Yeah, not only 3-point favorites, but as I look right now, 68% of the tickets, 82% of the money. People can't get enough of Alabama in this one. And the crazy thing, and I had to look this one up twice because I was curious the last time it actually happened. So Saturday is going to mark now the 18th consecutive game where Alabama will be favored over LSU. Tigers haven't been favored in the rivalry since 2007, Nick Saban's first season in Tuscaloosa. So, and also you look at it like this, let's see what it is, 9th consecutive meeting where they'll be favored in LSU as well. So the whole thing has just been so much on the other side in terms of Alabama. I'm going to go the other way. I do like LSU in this game. I just like the other one with Ole Miss. I do need the 3. Kelly is 3-0 straight up and against the spread as a home underdog at 3+ at LSU. He's done real well in this spot. I think the offense is going to show up. And I've been a big Alabama guy entering this year, and I was relatively wrong since they've just looked bad in certain spots. And away, they've been even worse. So I do think that it's going to be a little bit back and forth, and LSU's going to find a way, and I think the 3 is going to come in handy.
Yeah, I agree. Alabama has not done well against the spread all season. Brian Kelly, I don't believe, has lost a night game in Baton Rouge. Looking at the forecast, you got 60% chance of rain. There's a little hurricane moving past the area there. I think that could benefit Alabama's run game. And another thing that could benefit Alabama's run game is LSU's lack of ability to stop the run, as we saw play out in the second half of that Texas A&M game. So I think the Tide ground game has gotten cranked up these last couple of weeks. They've stopped relying on Milroe so much, in the pocket, making decisions. Stop trying to force things downfield. And this is going to be a good old-fashioned, muddy SEC war right here in the trenches, and I trust Bama more in the trenches. I'm going to go with the Tide.
Which is probably good for Nussmeier because that guy's been a turnover machine as of late as well. I agree with you. I think the Tide are going to be able to run the ball, and I specifically think it's going to be Jalen Milroe. I got him to crack 100 yards on the ground. I think he's going to have a big game on the ground. I do think it's going to be close, but I think Bama covers that 3 in Baton Rouge. All right, okay, Big 12 game. BYU, undefeated on the road. This is the Holy War, taking on Utah, a suboptimal Utah team at this point in the season, but a late kickoff for us on the East Coast, 10:15. Evan, who you got?
Can't wait. Now, this is the crazy one. So the preseason look-ahead line, when all these game of the year lines come out, Utah -17 was the look-ahead here. Those were the expectations for a BYU team that I believe had a win total of 4.5 entering this year. Just a complete 180, and this is what makes this game awesome. But BYU has been listed as a favorite 13 times versus Utah since 1993. They are 2-11 against the spread in those games, losing its last 4 against the spread. Utah's lost 8 straight games straight up at home as a dog since 2013. They have been absolutely terrible in this spot, and here it is. Looking at the board right now, BYU and Utah, the 3rd most bet game of any game over the weekend, and you have got over 90% of the tickets and money right now. Everything flowing towards BYU. I think everyone's assuming just chaos in this one. I am going to look towards Utah. I'm going to go with the dog again here. I want 4, though, in this game. I just think all the expectations on one side, crazy things have happened, and BYU also probably should have just dropped a game or 2 entering this one. And I think the spread's telling the entire story. I think most people would say, why is it so low? I think it's going to be a tough one for them, and weird things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Wow, I like it. This is I want some chaos here, and this would be another piece of that puzzle there. It's just tough to trust this Utah team. They burned me a few times this year already. I don't know if we'll ever see Cam Rising again. 32 years old now. Certainly not this season. Isaac Wilson has not played well. This has been one of the most disappointing Kyle Whittingham teams I can remember, even on defense, which is kind of their calling card, right? And every time I've gone against BYU this season, it has burned me. So I'm going to take those Cougars to keep it rolling and cover the 3.5 or 4 there in the Holy War.
I think Utah's defense has actually played pretty decently. Their offense is obviously awful. I don't even know if we know who the starting quarterback is going to be. They were saying it was going to be a late week pick on whether it's going to be.
It's Cam Rising.
Wilson.
He's back.
Yeah, right. Wilson or Rose. But look, they're not going to be able to chuck the ball for 300 yards against BYU, but I do think there is a vulnerability in BYU's run defense. We saw them get gashed by Oklahoma State, and UCF ran for a ton of yards against them. That could be the method. Maybe you force a couple turnovers defensively. Now you got a sneaky close game. I kind of liked as you were looking through the looking glass there, Evan, what you were seeing. So I'm going to go low-scoring, gritty defense. Give me Utah and those points. All right, we got one game out of the NFL, and it's our home team, Buccaneers, back home at Raymond James Stadium, hosting the 49ers. Niners come in 5.5-point favorites. Who you like?
Yeah, to me, this line is just about right. Now it's up to 6. It literally moved minutes before we came on air, as I've been looking to kind of bet on this one as well. To me, and we're even on tickets and money, I think the line is just about right. I will say this, though. In terms of the 49ers and what they've brought to the table, and I know they're trying to get healthy again, bringing back McCaffrey, but they have been really terrible in the red zone, and they've been stalling out of their minds. They're one of 5 teams below 50% in terms of red zone percentage. Last year, they were at 67%, best mark in the NFL. So with that being said, I think it's a little bit difficult to cover spreads without scoring touchdowns, and I'm not sure McCaffrey's going to, come back and make everything all good here. So I would lean Tampa with the 6. I don't love it, though, so I think another bet I would put on the side. I bet this last week. I'm going to bet this until it stops hitting, which is K-Dot. He's getting read targets and first read receptions. I think he's 4th right now since the Evans and Godwin injuries on first read targets and targets overall, with only 3 receivers ahead of him. So he is looking his way all the time. So it was over 3.5 receptions. I don't think it's out yet. And I would even look at him in the end zone. So, and the one stat that just gives me a little bit of pause, and this has been very consistent, road favorites off a bye are really, really good. They're 76, 50, and 4, 60.3% against the spread since 2004. This year, they're already 2-0. So it gives me a tiny bit of pause that usually those teams with a lot of rest as a team go together and they play well. So I'll look towards Kate Otten, but the line I think is just right.
Yeah, this is the return of Christian McCaffrey, right?
Indeed.
That's what we were expecting.
Yeah, we were expecting.
Jawan Jennings coming back. Feels like, the Niners should probably cover. But this Bucs team, there's something about them. And, on one hand, you could say, they left it all on the field against the Chiefs the other night. But I don't think so. I think they found something else in this offense that Liam Cohen has been kind of able to MacGyver together. Some guys obviously relying a lot on K. Dotton. Fun K. Dotton story. In my fantasy draft, I drafted him around the 14th or 15th pick, put him on my bench and then waited. and waited, and so I cut him after week 5 when he didn't sniff the football.
Yeah.
And now people are beating me over the head with him.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You've been Ottened.
I have been Ottened, not soft like cotton. I think the Bucs are good. I think the red zone, you pointed out very correctly there for the 49ers. They're going to settle for some field goals. I think the Bucs are going to cover the spread.
I'm torn on this one. To your point about this gritty Bucs team that just makes a way where it doesn't seem like there is one, that is indeed true. But the scheduling just did not do this team any favors. Niners are coming off a bye. The Bucs are coming off a Monday night till. So they got a short week against San Francisco. Granted, it is at home, but Niners are getting their complement of players back. I want to say the Niners, but I'm going to go with the Bucs. I'm going to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say the Bucs make it gritty, make it close. Maybe there's just a little bit more salt in the wound that they didn't go for 2 at the end of last week's game. They want to prove that they can get that win. They need it. I mean, when it comes to desperation, there's not a more desperate team in this matchup than the Bucs. So for that reason,
the angle you could take here is you could take Bucs first half and assume off of not only Monday Night Football but off of overtime on Monday Night Football, which the numbers aren't great with those teams that come off that situation. It's much less rest, much less time. So you could look Bucs first half and maybe a fade after.
Okay, I like that. He's trying to help me. He's trying to get me off the hook. I appreciate it.
He gave us some good nuggets there, though.
Save me a couple dollars. He is Evan Abrams from Action Network. Appreciate your insight, and I think you helped our listeners out quite a bit. As Chris has been taking notes.
I've got Indiana team total over, Cade Otten over, and Bucs first half.
There it is. All right.
Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Good stuff. Thanks, Evan. All right, coming up on the other side, we bring BK back in as we dial up the randomizer. It's been juiced up with the Mountain Dew. We'll see what's up.
I'm worried.
Those questions coming our way next. Welcome back to the No Off Days podcast. Let's bring BK back in. BK, all right, randomizer. It's been you took it for an oil change this last week.
Worked on the alignment some, yeah.
Yeah. What did
New
they
shocks.
say about it? Did they say it's still running like she's brand new? Or?
It does, actually. So we've got some good miles left in it.
That's good. That's what I like to hear because the budget is not opening up anytime soon.
It sure isn't, my
especially
friend.
in light of some recent news. You know, it's just we don't have it in the budget. All right, so we're gonna fire up. We want to give a quick explainer as to what the randomizer is for all the newbies here on the NODPOD.
It's a machine. It's got all these 3,724 questions loaded in it, I believe.
I checked.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it just randomly spins, and then you guys, voice activated, stop it, and wherever the question lands, we have to answer the question.
I kind of missed the button. I
where
mean,
do you
I got to
really?
be honest. I kind of like that.
What happened? It got cut out of the budget. We lost the
did.
button.
Well,
did.
sometimes it's like technology thinks it's getting smarter.
Right.
Because it wants like voice activated stuff. It's like your phone. You know,
Yeah.
it's like now you just look at it and it logs into all your accounts. It's a little scary. Sometimes you just want to be a traditionalist and go back to the way it was.
But
the
then
rotary phone of the randomizer.
Right.
the
Yeah.
landline.
Dial it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I missed the button too, but this is new technology. You know, we'll forget about the button in a few more episodes, I'm sure.
All right. You want to go first, buddy?
Yes. Do I have to be honest when I answer these questions, though?
Well, are you ever?
We'll see.
Fire it up.
Let's roll it. And whenever you will say stop.
And stop.
All right, if you could change any rule in any sport, what would it be?
In any sport.
Yeah. There's a rule in any sport, what would
If
it
you
be?
can name one rule in cricket, I'll give you
So
bonus
many
points.
arbitrary rules in lawn darts that I'd like to get rid of. No, I thought about
Cornhole.
first thing that occurred to me was the World Series game where the Yankees fans were yanking the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove, and I thought maybe let's incorporate that more. Like in football, let's bring fans closer to the action.
more
Maybe
in the action.
a fan can pick off a pass,
Yeah.
or try to strip the ball. Now, if there was one I would change, the one that annoys me the most because it is my most favorite sport, college football, is the way that they penalize players for targeting.
Oh.
The targeting rule itself is up for debate whether or not that's good, but if we have to have a targeting rule, I do not like the way they administer the penalty where a player, if it occurs in the first half, they have to get ejected and sit out the second half, or if it occurs in the second half, they're out for the first. It just is such a disadvantage, and it's to the player, to the team, it punishes the whole team. I think they should make it more like since targeting is so subjective, quite often, it's not intentional. The ball carrier's body is kind of bending into the defender as the impact is occurring. I say make it a level 1 violation and a level 2 violation for those flagrant where someone's just clearly trying to launch and take a guy's head off.
Yeah.
And and so if you want to eject for a level 2, I think that's fine. But I think there needs to be a little more separation there. And plus, now that we pay these players, couldn't we just fine them like the NFL does?
Yeah, you could do that
instead of kicking them out of the game.
NIL budget.
Yeah, dip in the old NIL.
I like it. I think that's a very good one. I don't like targeting. I don't like the penalty that's associated with it. I don't like that you're talking about levels of it. It's just we're playing football here. The whole essence of football is targeting. You're targeting everything. I'm targeting my receiver. I'm targeting this run defense. All these things. It's all about targeting, and it makes it sound like it's a malicious thing. And we know that in like 99% of these cases that it's just incidental. It's the fact that you got two guys flying full speed across the field. They're both trying to make a play on the ball, and the two helmets happen to touch. Now we got a guy that's ejected for the rest of the game. I don't like it, and I'm with you on that, but I'm going to say, because you took mine, I'm going to say the foot fault in bowling. Like if your foot goes across the line. How am I supposed to be able to control it? I got these big, long, goofy clown shoes. I just put them on. I don't know how many inches above my toe. So I think that's not fair.
That's a sacred part of bowling, though.
No.
You can't cross the line.
No. I think the penalty that it's greasy is the penalty. That should just be like you could slip. You could slip.
You need to start your release a little further back is what I think.
You're
cheating with your long arms there.
Okay. All right, let's fire it up.
Roll it.
And stop.
If you could have something named after you, what would it be?
Potatoes.
So some things I know it wouldn't be. I don't want a virus named after me. Yeah, or unless it's a good virus.
Yeah.
He's got the good Cato disease, the one that just gets you out of work for a few days.
That bad case of Cato.
I wouldn't want a surgery named after me, right? Or maybe you do.
That's pretty.
We did a
cool.
story recently on Tommy John.
Yeah.
He lives in the area.
Does he like having the surgery named after him?
I think so.
Okay.
Because it's really been, but a lot of younger kids don't realize that there's an actual person named Tommy John.
They just think it's a cool.
Yeah.
Or it's underwear, right? Doesn't Tommy John make underwear too?
Yeah, I think so.
Did he? Is he behind that? Is he behind the underwear as well?
I don't know what's behind his underwear, and I don't really want to go further than that. All right.
What surgery would I want named after me? No, I think if I have to have something named after, something to elongate the nose. No, I think if there is something I want named after me, it is a sandwich. I would love to have a sandwich named after me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like
what would be in it?
I think Reuben was a real guy, and he has a Reuben
really?
named after him.
Was that named after Pee Wee Herman?
No, I don't.
Paul
It's just
Reuben?
a guy named. I think he was a king or something. But yeah, so I don't want it to be like Larry David and Curb Your
My conquest shall be a sandwich.
The Earl of Sandwich.
Henceforth.
The Earl of Sandwich was a real person too, which the sandwich is named after. But anyway, I don't want it to be something like, remember in Curb Your Enthusiasm when Larry David had the Larry David, and it was the deli owner that named it after him, but it was like white fish and onions and cream cheese. I would want to design it. And, mine would probably be like I'm saying a turkey burger, smoked Gouda cheese, bacon, red leaf lettuce with some whiskey sauce on it. That's the Cato. Yeah,
right.
I'll have the Cato.
Okay, that sounds good. Whiskey sauce on a sandwich?
That's good.
I don't know. I don't know if I want the Cato.
Well, just say hold the whiskey
Everybody's
sauce.
vomiting violently because they've all had the Cato.
All right. You put your mouth on a Cato, you won't regret it.
All right. I'm going to do, how about taking a cue from Dick Fosbury? I would like an athletic move named after me, much like the Fosbury flop that has revolutionized the high jump.
Oh.
Back in the day. Have you seen video of like what they used to do?
What did
high
they
jump?
do before?
They just look like dorks jumping over this big old pole, and they did it like they try to or scissor kick it over.
Well, they still look like dorks.
No, now it's cool. Now you're like. You look like you're flying through the air.
How do their spines do
I want
that?
I want like the Scott grip or something like that. Maybe I like reverse my hands on a baseball bat. And I'm like, how come you guys haven't ever tried this?
The Scott grip.
Everybody's hitting home runs.
Yeah, or maybe it's a golf swing. Like you have this like really quirky
Scott flop or something like that. Yeah,
a flop shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
BK, do you have one?
Mine's similar to that. I think it'd be cool to have like a NFL alignment named after you, like Tampa 2, but it'd be like the BK4, where it's like some onside kick where some 4 guys are back, something like that. Every Sunday.
You already
they're in the
have a-
BK4 defense.
You
Yeah.
already have a restaurant named after you.
Yeah, I was going to go there, but that's kind of, yeah. All right, one more?
Yeah, let's do it. Fire up. Okay, here we go. Stop.
What's the best advice you can give in exactly 3 words? 3 words.
Don't eat Cato.
My sandwich, it's delicious.
Cato, make sick.
Hold the mayo on the Cato.
Don't eat that. The best advice. Please courtesy flush. No, I think let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go. That's good advice. I think it kind of holds true in everything, right?
It's hard to do, though.
Yeah.
It's so fun to hold on to.
I know.
Why do I want to let it go?
No.
It
Well,
gives me
'cause you're
joy
you're
to worry over
petty.
this. I don't want to
Stop
let it
being
go.
petty. Stop being petty. There we
I'll
go.
never give up on my sandwich. That's good advice. Oh, there are a bunch. Call your mom is usually solid advice.
Nice.
Okay.
You know, you're having a bad day, or maybe mom's having a bad day and you don't know it. Call your mom.
You gonna make me cry?
She's usually right. Those 3 words could keep you out of some trouble.
That's but you got a little hyphenated word in there. She
Yeah, you're right. I
is,
did
yeah,
cheat
you
there.
kinda-
How about she usually right? Does that work? I think Vanilla Ice gave us the best 3-word advice. It's stop, collaborate, listen.
Yeah.
If you just do that in life, just don't rush into things. Stop,
collaborate.
That means bounce it off of a buddy. Yeah, and then listen.
Yeah.
Important to listen before speaking. That's mine. Stop, collaborate, listen.
Okay. All right.
Very
Word
good.
to your mother. That's 4.
How do we do? How about you, BK?
Yeah.
Give us a 3-word word of wisdom.
Never quit grinding.
Never quit. That was going to be the
Because
name
I
of our
always
show.
grind my
Yeah.
coffee beans in the morning and they come out.
Yes,
Oh.
that's good
I thought
advice.
it was
Yeah.
because you grind your teeth while you sleep.
That too.
Never quit grinding.
This guy's going through so many mouth guards. He's chewing on rocks.
Look at those little nubs he's left with there.
I won't stop.
Good job, guys.
That's good advice.
All right. Good stuff, BK. Appreciate it.
We'll see ya.
Hey, much thanks to Evan Abrams, who gave us some good advice on our picks this week. We shall see. It's coming down the home stretch of the college football playoff, and it's a beautiful thing to behold, is it not? Much thanks to our crew. We got Mariah on the jib. Chris on the 1s and 2s, I believe.
Or is he on the faders tonight?
Yeah, I don't know. How's Ron's
Sarah-
back doing?
Sarah
is it
on
good?
the one.
Everybody good? BK, much thanks to you. For Chris, I'm Scott. Until the next time we're on, there are no off days.
That's 3 words of advice. No off days.
That's right.
Just don't take it.
Man,
Ever.
missed the opportunity.